guys have listened into my fictional work, but today I've got more of like a memoir piece. Growing up, me and my dad had a really close relationship, so this is sort of like one of those times that I always look forward to that happened often and usually not really aware by my mom and my sister kind of thing. You want to go to work with Daddy today? Those words I adored most from my father while growing up in Central Florida. I nodded eagerly, keeping my lips tight since my mother and younger sister were usually asleep this early in the morning. Go on then, he smiled, opening the front door. Get your butt in the truck. Getting into my dad's truck was like climbing a metallic golden mountain named Dodge. My father was a mechanic for certifying fruit company, and it was normal for him to have to go deep into the groves to work on the tractors and equipment on the weekend on occasion. My family had a history of working for the business, all of us living on the same street. I was sixth generation there. The houses rented out to them and were in front of the actual mechanic's shop. Sadly, it's all gone now. The whole ride was filled with orange groves on both sides of the road with the occasional house. However, today, you'll find nothing but subdivisions and businesses. Not all of them were the orange groves my father worked in, but I remember watching the passing trees. The rows were hypnotic as gaps opened and closed at various angles. If the orange blossoms were in bloom, the weather nice, we would ride with the windows down. The smell was a bittersweet fragrance, so thick in the air that even under exhale, it seemed to be full of the scent. I used to count the sharp 90-degree turns. 1, 2, 3, 5, I think, was the magic number. My smile would leave my cheeks aching as I caught the flashing orange of the clay road on the right. This is where we were headed, and this was my personal favorite grove, with my all-time favorite type of oranges, maples. The truck suspension would creak and moan, turning down the clay path. Giggling, I enjoyed bouncing around on that old truck bench seat. To this day, I remember we were going to the Hancock Grove area, rightfully named after the lake. If you go there today, you'll see very little of where I used to run and play. The back half of the grove is now a golf course, while the front half is a gated multi-million-dollar home development. The once all-natural lake is bejeweled with man-made beach and skiing buoys. Every time I see it, my heart aches to see the phantoms of the groves I adored so much. The truck rolled to a stop, the dust from the road rolling past in a heavy, sleepy cloud of orange. Sliding off the edge of the seat, I landed on my feet, excited. I followed my father, close on his heels, to see that task had been set before him. Conversation was short and to the point between us. If we even spoke at all the whole time we were out there. Cicadas shrilling, mockingbirds chirping, the sound of an old tractor starting were all music to my ears and worth more than any conversation could have brought me. When it was clear my father did not need me to be his helper, fetching and holding his tools, I changed my agenda to exploring. The sun was warm and toasty on those days, as expected in Florida. The sun. Often I would come across a wild rabbit, little and old lizards, birds of all colors, and even at times snakes, seeking out rats, often took residence in the barn. Occasionally I would find a toad, chasing him to his hole and crouching there, grow curious of what his life must be like. Crunching sounds often led me to discovering a marching green gopher tortoise, a vagabond who aimlessly wandered the realm of the orange groves. A whistle would interrupt the world, the animals and I, pausing to look in the direction it came from. Valerie! My father's voice would roar. Where you at, girl? Running, I'd always manage to pop up from behind him in an instant. His smile under his bushy mustache was wide, expressing his enjoyment of my adventure as I stood there, red-cheeked and beaming. There was no denying he knew how much I loved nature and being out there with him. The usual routine there at Hancock was he would open the passenger side door of the truck, and obediently I would climb back into my spot. As he came around to his side, he'd magically have an orange for me. Sometimes he'd hand it to me, other times he'd take a moment to peel back the top half like an apple poking a hole in it so I could squeeze and suckle the juice from it. "You want to do some fishing before we go home?" And I would nod excitedly. Fishing was my other love. He would start the truck and go deeper through the grove, working our way to the edge of the lake. The road was right along its side. Often I wondered if we hit a bump hard enough, if we would tumble down into the lake. Stopping, my dad had cleared a spot for fishing just for the sole purpose of providing me a safe spot. He would set up my fishing pole, handing it over to me, not caring I was sticky with orange juice. It was my pole, and he left me to do what I had been taught to do. My shoes would make sucking, squishy sounds if I got too close to the water's edge. Squinting, I looked for lily pads to toss my line next to in hopes of luring out a fish. Ironically, I don't ever recall catching much out of the lake, and we spent hours there. Turtles would pop their heads out of the water, curious as to what we were doing there. Waterfowl often filled the far edges of the lake, ducks swimming in the shade of a tree, and sometimes a blue heron would join our side. If I was lucky, my floating bobber would hop, dipping in and out of the water for a second. My grip would tighten, lipping to the fish, get it, take it. Under the water it would go and stay. My heart thumping in my ears, I would jerk up on my pole. The tugging and bending of the tip of my rod would confirm I had a fish on the hook. Reeling the fish in, fighting the constant pulls and tugs, I would bring in my prize for my patience. Often we would catch Florida panfish of all kinds, bluegills with their blue-toned sides, shell crackers with their spots bordered in red and orange, and even specks with the spots and opalescent gray scales. It was always sad when we finally would have to give up, often from rumbling on afternoon storms and the incoming dark clouds. The water would turn choppy and angry in an instant, forcing us to back up. Climbing back in the truck, it seemed that we both would sit in there, sighing, not wanting to leave the peacefulness of the grove brought to both of us. I think the last time I ever went out there was after I saw them clearing half the grove to make way for houses. After that, couldn't bear to ruin my memories of orange groves that made up most of my childhood.